Hello and welcome to Book of Leaves podcast. My name is Cara and I am your host. Thank you so much for listening in to episode 26 of Book of Leaves. If this is your first episode, you are very welcome. My name's Cara. I am the host of the show, clearly, and every episode most episodes anyway, I interview someone who's doing something good for the planet in some way. They could be a business owner, an activist, or average Joe like myself, just doing their bit for the planet. And sometimes we get to know them and learn from them, their inspiring story, and sometimes we delve straight into education and facts and all that kind of stuff. So it's got a little bit of everything. For any regular listeners, thank you so much. You're very welcome back. I hope you're all keeping well, considering sure look, we'll go on, will we? Hopefully this episode will be like a little bit of a distraction or something just to inspire you. And I just love finding out about people who are doing something good for the planet. They make me really happy, and Fiona is definitely one of those people. Fiona herself is from Skerries in Dublin, and she is now living in Donegal with her son Max, and we'll talk about her journey. Before we get into that though, for anyone watching on YouTube, you will see of course that I'm actually in a Fiona Lily jumper at the moment. When I discovered her brand a couple of weeks ago, I ordered one of these because I don't have that many jumpers. I have one jumper, and in lockdown all I've been wearing are tracksuits and jumpers, so I've just been going around in this one jumper. So now I've got one to wash and one to wear, and I'll rotate between them, and I'm loving it. It's so soft and bright, and they're really, really cozy. So I definitely recommend to keep an eye out on her stock. Like they're gorgeous, and they've got lovely positive messages on them as well. Make sure you go follow her Instagram after this to keep an eye out for stock. And for anyone that's really interested in fast fashion, this episode we don't delve too much into facts and figures. It's more so Fiona's story. But if you are interested in that, go check out episode 2 after this with Avi McCann. We talk a good bit about fast fashion and that, and there will also be another episode coming up soon with my cousin Ronan, who runs Thriftify, who've just added basically charity shop fashion segments to their website. They're selling items from charity shops online in Ireland, so we don't need to wait for charity shops to reopen to go shopping in charity shops for secondhand stuff. You can buy them now on Thriftify. So I'm going to have him on in a couple of weeks to talk about fashion and microplastics as well. I'm looking forward to that. And if you would like to support this podcast, please do recommend it to a friend, share it around, rate it and review on iTunes, Apple Podcasts. If you're listening on that is very, very helpful. It helps kind of bump it up for other people to see it. And I also have a Patreon account as well. If you can financially support this podcast in any way, that would be greatly appreciated. I know these times are crazy for a lot of people, so it's only if you can, it would be greatly appreciated, €1 or €2. And you can also make a once-off donation of a coffee or two on buymeacoffee.com/Book of Leaves. Everything is linked in the show notes. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you now to Fiona. We're going to hear her story. Don't forget to stick around after for some show notes. Talk to you after. Now, Fiona, thank you so much for taking some time from your busy schedule on this lovely Friday to come and talk to me on Book of Leaves about sustainable fashion and all things Fiona Lily.
Yeah, you're welcome. I've been so excited to do this for weeks now, and I'm so glad that we finally got a day.
Yeah, I know. Everyone is at home. Sometimes you're really busy, sometimes you're not, but it can still be so hard to pin down a time when we're both not busy at the same time. So I appreciate you being here, and I'm looking forward to finding out all about you and all about the business and learning as well, more about sustainable fashion and whatnot. So I guess to jump straight in, you have 2 eco-conscious businesses, but obviously for most people there's always a point where they become more eco-aware. It might be something that inspired them, it might be giving birth, or it might always kind of been in their lives. So what was your inspiration for just being a more kind of sustainable person and wanting to live a life more in harmony with the planet?
Yeah, it's It's a really good question. So I suppose for me, it actually comes from my own upbringing. So it was instilled in me for quite a while. My father would have, and like his family, they come from a farming background. So my father, 20 plus years ago, decided to leave Dublin corporate world and move back up and set up his own organic farm. And I would have been possibly maybe 16 at that point. And I knew nothing about it, like nothing at that point. He worked in aviation. It was a very different life. But as he sort of developed that business, he won awards for it. He grew it over the few years, him and my mother. I got really intrigued by it. And obviously when I was there, I was still in school in Dublin. But when I was there on weekends and stuff, I learned a lot unbeknownst to myself because I was in these polytunnels. I was learning how to grow food and why my father wanted to do that. He was explaining different things of the carbon footprint of like a punnet of tomatoes that I had bought, for example, in Super Value or something that day when I arrived, and it had come from wherever in the world, you know, and he's like, we can literally grow them here. So they changed their whole way of life, and that was their plan. They wanted to move to Donegal to live off the planet, grow and eat seasonally as to only what they could grow within these tunnels. So he built it up, don't get me wrong. It took a few years, you know, it takes up to 5 years for the land to become certified organic and all this kind of thing. So it was definitely a long process, but it really opened my eyes for that side of the environment from talking to my dad and from learning different things that he had learned through going to like the organic center training courses that he put himself on to kind of educate himself more. And that sort of then I think stuck in my head. I was going back, don't forget, to the city, to like really fast paced environment from this very unusual new way that my parents were living. And I could see the difference in my father after less than, I'd say, I don't know, 6 to 9 months, because he left. He was in a very high powered corporate job and he completely left that and went into creating this. So it was very attractive to me, but obviously I was still in school and had to do college and all of that. And I suppose I got, like, my sort of background would be sort of very creative, and I always loved to draw, same as my dad. He would always be painting. Oil painting was his thing, charcoal and graphic-y stuff was mine. And yeah, we were chatting one day, and you know, I was trying to figure out where am I going to go, you know, when you're at that point, like a lot of people now, even like a leaving cert and stuff like that, where you're trying to like figure out what do I want to do in the world. And I remember sitting with my dad and saying that, like, you know, what you've done here is incredible. Like, you've opened my eyes to it, and I need to somehow keep that throughout my life. And you know, I need to figure that in what I love to do. Do you know what I mean? Not follow exactly and copy what he's doing, but
Yeah.
so when I sort of, as I grew older and older, like, I mean, I studied through arts. I did psychology, sociology, and geography. Nothing to do with fashion. But that's where my brain was at the time, and I wanted to learn a lot of that sort of stuff, and I was fascinated by it. But I also got a part-time job when I was in college, and that was in Benetton, and that was starting into the fashion world and learning about it. I worked there for years, and I trained as a visual merchandiser, and then got kind of picked by another company called Oasis, and I became their head visual merchandiser for years, and I got really involved in that side of it. And as I was in it, I remember talking to my dad, and he was saying, you know, do you remember that conversation we had years ago where you wanted to keep the, you know, I was coming home, and I was traveling as well, like I was flying, I was traveling, I was, you know, kind of and I loved it. I had no children, I was like independent, I had a good job, and I was really good at it. And I remember him saying that to me, and that stuck in my head. And I drove the whole way back from Donegal to Dublin, and I couldn't get it out of my head. And I started researching. This is years ago now. Like, I know fast fashion is a thing now, and it's been really talked about. And I started looking into it, and it literally broke my heart. I was like, oh my God, I'm in like an industry that is like literally detrimental for the planet.
Yeah.
Like the result facts and stuff that I was getting. So I was like, oh wow. And within 6 months, I handed my notice in. I left the job, like really well paid job, walked away from it, and started working literally in vintage. I got a job in Nine Crows in Dublin, and started to, and I was literally just on the shop floor there, and I worked my way up to manager. And yeah, that's where I started to learn then, like, how that company and what they were doing with sourcing stuff that already existed, reworking, repurposing, all of that sort of stuff came into it. So it was fascinating. And then it really, really intrigued me to kind of work with stuff that we already have and stop creating new all the time if we don't need. So I suppose that's kind of very I don't know, long-winded, but how it
Yeah,
kind of got.
no. Yeah, that's the journey that you took. That's really, I love that it was a parent, you know, that inspired. Everyone's story is different. And my mom was a huge influence on me. So I love that, you know, because a lot of people have maybe stereotype, I think stereotypically about the older generation that it's their fault that we're in this mess. And they're not all the same. Everyone is different. So that's really lovely to hear. What was I going to ask? Oh, yes. So I guess moving on then, you were working as a manager in Nine Crows. You're all about kind of fashion and everything now, but you're also aware of the waste in the fashion industry. And All Things Fiona Lily, the amazing thing for anyone who doesn't know about them is you're taking basically waste from the fashion industry. You're taking perfectly good clothes that are due for landfill and you're basically intercepting that. You're taking them, you're adding your gorgeous positive messages, and then you go on and sell them. So do you know roughly like how much clothes go to landfill before they even get to someone's wardrobe? It's probably a crazy amount, is it?
Yeah, it's 350,000 tons
That's
a
before
year.
of just of clothes that haven't gone into anyone's wardrobe. Is that just in Ireland or
No,
worldwide?
that's actually a UK figure. In
Okay.
Ireland is slightly less, but I don't have the exact figure in Ireland. It is more based on what I can find. It's based on UK figures.
Yeah. So that's wow. So that's like just perfect clothes going to landfill. That's such a pity, but we also need to kind of hear that kind of stuff to inspire us and spur us on to keep on doing what we're doing, I guess. So how did you find these warehouses? Was it through kind of connections that you had from working in the fashion industry?
Yeah, exactly. So I had originally years ago when I was in Nine Crows, I had actually set up a brand similar to this, but it wasn't as eco-conscious maybe. It was some more organic t-shirts and screen printing and stuff. And through that, I had in that time frame when I was working there, I had met a lot of different people that had worked throughout different various parts of the fashion industry. So yeah, I had made a lot of connections. I also, when I started researching this brand, like only 9 months ago or something, I just kind of reached out. I took a chance. It was a friend of mine that had and worked in a warehouse here in Ireland that supplied all of this type. So you've Gildan, Fruit of the Loom, you know, a variety of different
Yeah.
clothing and stuff that a lot of people will use for clothing brands or for uniforms for work or whatever. So I had reached out to her and asked her, we'd had a relationship, like a good relationship, work relationship and sort of like friendship relationship over the years, and asked her like about this industry a little bit more, like what I didn't know, you know, and I wanted to kind of visit it and kind of learn myself and see it with my own eyes. So I did that. And the day I was there was like they were perfectly fine. Is it the one I'm wearing or the one you're wearing? The one you're wearing.
I'm wearing
Yeah,
a Be Kind for anyone at home who can't see this, for anyone not watching on YouTube. It's like a really bright, like yellowy color with a pink Be Kind message on it. And it's huge and comfy and cozy. But there's nothing wrong with it. Like, do you know what I mean? So I don't know why it would be going to landfill.
exactly. So when I was in there, like there was literally a box of that particular color. And funny enough, that color anyway within that range is not very popular, where I love it. But anyway, the day I was there, I think they were XL or double XL. I can't remember what size they were off the top of my head. But there was like 20 of them in a box, and they were completely like the stitches, whatever had happened on them, the whole stitch kind of had run from here across the shoulder. So I guess with this situation, like they are making these jumpers consistently all the time. So when something like that happens, I think it's just easier to run the 30 again than have the
Then
time to
fix them.
yeah, I think that's kind of what's happening. So when I was there, I put it on me. Like I'm a tiny size 6. I put it on me and rolled up the sleeves, and I was like, oh my God, like literally all it needs is like to be repaired, like to, you know, so that day I said it, and I do pay for them. That's one of the questions that I get a lot, because I'm taking stuff that would, you know, obviously either be faulty or go to the bin. Like, what, do I pay for them? Of course I do. I don't pay maybe the price that maybe you would normally pay for the full if you were buying them regularly or however you want to put it, but I still pay for them. So I did take them that day, and that is sort of how this came around, you know. It all sort of came around, funny enough, organically, if you like that happening, and me having these gold giant crew necks going like, what am I going to do with them? You know, they first of all need to be repaired, and then they were so bright. I couldn't believe, I was looking at them, and the yellowy gold that you've on you was literally making me smile, even though it was ripped. I was like, you know, the color of this, and if I put it with a really bright fuchsia and stick something super positive on it, this could really change the whole thing. And that's where I was trying to go with it. I wanted to make something, not just the fact that we're saving these from going, God love them, to the bin, but also add another element of, for I suppose, mental health, a positive outlook, and print them with quotes and stuff that I thought quite appropriate in those big bright bold colors. Yeah, it kind of went from there, and I stuck with that warehouse, and I just got her to kind of email me whenever there was like either an order that had gone wrong or was unwanted or faulty stock, or end of line gear that wasn't selling, whatever it was. And she'd just email me and let me know, saying, I have 10 of these, I have 20 of these, this is the color. Now, the only thing is, a lot of the, as you can see, like, they are quite big, but in a sense, I just kind of thought, make it easier, instead of having and trying to source small, medium, large, extra large crew necks, just pick one size that can cover a variety of people. And that was sort of my idea then from there.
That's
I don't
amazing.
have a lot, can I get a small or medium? There is no size range. I don't have a say, and a lot of the time I don't have a say in, they kind of know. I work with 3 different places now, so they kind of know my color palette. But like last week, one of the girls emailed me and they had loads of those mint colored ones that I hadn't even thought about, and they're bloody gorgeous. I was like, oh my God, yes.
Amazing. So I guess they're going to landfill either because there's something wrong with them or they're just not selling, and you then take them. How do you get them repaired? Do you do that yourself, or do you send them to somewhere else if they need repair? And
at the beginning I was doing it myself. Now they go to like actually a local, what do you call them, alteration
seamstress
store.
Or yeah.
Now, because of the volume that I have saved, which is another thing, I should actually total at this point and have that. I thought about this last night. I should total the amount that we've all, like you, all of us have now saved from going to landfill. That
definitely.
I, probably during quarantine, I probably could amend a few of them myself, but no, I've kind of kept it going now.
It's good to support the local businesses as well. So is there ever a worry that you might run out of stock, that these places might not have anything going to landfill and you just have to kind of look elsewhere?
Yeah, totally. And that has happened even now, and that is why a lot of the time, like, weirdly, I think it has kind of helped the brand because it is slow fashion. I can only get a limited run of certain things, like the kids run that I did was literally a once off. And if I could get more, I would, but I'm not going to break my ethos of my brand, because I've been asked so many times for kids ones, but I'm not going to go buying generic stock. Like, that's just, I can't. And I expressed that on my stories there last week, because I've been inundated with that. I have to really stick to what I have built and why I've done it, and even like this one that I'm wearing is currently sold out for the last 3 weeks because I just can't get the color. It's just not happening. So, but it has created demand. These people now that are messaging me are like, I'll wait, just let me know, please put it on your stories when it's back in stock. And so I don't know, in a weird way, these are probably gonna be one-offs eventually, that that one you're wearing will probably run out and I won't be able to do it for quite a while.
Yeah, but that's like, it's good to stay authentic to the sustainability message. Like, that's what we want. So it's the whole premise of clothes, everything that we want on demand is kind of what is getting us here today. Sometimes we need to wait for good things to come. And speaking of good things to come is a positive message, and your jumpers they all have really positive messages on them. Do you design those, or where do you get the visuals for them?
Yeah, I do them on like Procreate on my iPad. I have like a really fancy Apple pen that's ridiculously expensive, but it works. And yeah, I kind of doodle. I like to doodle. I've kind of always done that since I was really, really young. So yeah, the original one, the one that you're wearing, like the Be Kind, that literally came from like a point in my life where somebody very close to me, a friend for life at this stage, just did something way out of her, she didn't have to do for me in a time in my life. And a lot of these I come from, a point because I suffered quite badly with mental health and anxiety and stuff like that over different things that have happened to me in my personal life. And when I was doing and researching all of this, that first jumper, that Be Kind, literally came from her and myself and what had happened. So, and it was just something that I kind of doodled, and I had a doodle. I still have the original that I just doodled on like a page one night in bed. And I was like, you know what, that would look amazing on that jumper, and that's where I'm going to go with it. And then I kind of ran from there, and I just stuck to positive quotes that people can take and interpret whatever way they want. Like, it could be kind to your mental health, whereas where I was going with it, or be kind to another human, be kind to the planet, be kind to animals. It's got so many kind of meanings and stuff. So I kind of liked that about it. So yeah, I kind of ran with that. And especially right now, I like that time of creating, like when Max is in bed or something like that, and it makes me relaxed. It kind of makes my head switch off from, even before the pandemic that we're in, like it's just a nice switch off to do, like likes to meditate. I like to doodle.
Yeah, no, and they're gorgeous doodles, and they're all quite different as well. Like you're in a be positive jumper, the be kind is different. There's also dance mode on, there's really lovely messages on them, and they're all real positive and bright. So I guess All Things Fiona Lily, people can follow you. I'm going to link all the links to your page and everything, and you've got a website that people can order and pre-order from, and if they follow you on Instagram, they'll be kept up to date with your orders and everything. But you also, like, fashion isn't the only thing you did. You also this year went back to Donegal, or not went back to Donegal, you're already there, but you went and you set up a little cafe, a zero waste cafe. So can you tell us a little bit about that? I know obviously during the pandemic it's probably not doing so well like every other cafe, but tell us a little bit about your Simply Green journey.
Yeah, that was my original plan. So me leaving Dublin City and job and life, I suppose, down there back in 2015, to move myself and my son Max up here. Leaving, like, it's very daunting. I'm just trying to think back to that period of time, in my life, and like leaving like a job where you've a guaranteed wage to do something and move 3 hours away where you've never really lived before. Granted, your family are there, but and to go on that self-employed road. It's very daunting. So I needed to have something that, obviously I was coming from a fashion background, but moving to Donegal, that didn't really, nothing against that, but it didn't really exist. It's not like I could go into a job up there. And I knew I was going to have to do something myself. And myself and my dad had spoke about having the advantage of having Whitehill Eco Farm, which is the farm that he had set up many years before, which served many coffee shops and places across the Northwest. So, I had that and I need to utilize that. And my interest in the environment had grown dramatically back then. And I was literally researching everything from food to fashion to like plastic pollution, everything. And I got an opportunity when I was up one weekend to look at a premises, because myself and my auntie had spoke about, this idea. And we had spoke about it for about 2 years, but it was now beginning to, I think I felt like I kind of had manifested it, and this little premises came available and I fell in love with it. I could see it in my head. I could see the murals on the wall. I was like, okay. Now it didn't look like anything maybe to anyone else, but to me, I was like, yeah, it had the old traditional front on it. I was like, okay, I'm sold. So I kind of took the bull by the horns and I decided to go for it, with the backup of having the farm that I knew I'd have supply for it. Coffee shops in general have a massive carbon footprint, from the single use items to food waste in this country. We wouldn't be, I have to be honest, very, very good in that industry, especially even for the example of compost at every restaurant or cafe. It doesn't exist in this country, which is so sad. So I started there, like I had the farm and I knew that I could obviously compost everything at the farm, but I wanted to push it a bit further and get a company in Ireland that would give me compostable bins also, because I couldn't take everything to the farm. And that wasn't an easy step. That took maybe 6 or 8 weeks to get that as a business. So that'll give you an example of just, one certain thing. And then coming up to opening like food and all of the sort of rules and regulations in this country around food with the health inspector. I had to obviously really push with that area too, because I had a commercial kitchen where I was using beeswax wraps instead of cling film. I had, I was definitely, it was different. I was using, had no single use. I had no napkins, these paper napkins. Okay, granted, they're compostable, but I didn't have them. I had proper linen napkins and I had 90 of them and they were going to a laundrette every week. Things like that. Yeah, it wasn't, a lot of people ask me, because my coffee shop, it states in front of it, it's zero waste. Like, how can you be zero waste? And what that means in that industry is that I don't send anything to landfill. I compost the food. I don't have any single-use items. I have other sources. So I work with like Tetra Pak. So like all the like plant milk cartons go to that company. They get made into backpacks for kids. I have to have like an alternative end of line instead of landfill. That's sort of the idea. So I obviously still have waste, but it goes to better places, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now I know it unfortunately had to close down because of the pandemic that we're in. I'm hoping it, like every other small business that's doing something good for the planet, will be able to open after this. But I guess the last thing I want to ask you is, as a fellow person, but also you're an entrepreneur and a business person that is trying to do something good for the planet that we also need as well, how can the people of Ireland help to make sure that businesses like yours can survive this pandemic? Is there anything that you would say to people out there? If you've got a call to action, what would it be?
Oh, wow. To keep, yeah. I suppose it's I do feel that the little businesses, and not just fully environmentally, like those little businesses that give tiny little towns and even throughout Dublin City and cities across Ireland and the globe, I feel like they've been hit the most, and I feel like it's super challenging right now. I'm not going to lie. I'm dealing with my accountant on a weekly basis, having my coffee shop closed week after week, and my staff off and everything. So I guess what I would say to nearly anybody out there is to remember to shop local and those small businesses, and there's definitely, I see a lot of options coming up online. Like I've done it with my place, and my customers have been amazing, where they're buying gift vouchers, like on like maybe a bi-weekly basis to use for when we open the door again. And that's just keeping something coming in. And it's the money you would have spent, if you could have went for lunch today in Simply Green. And that's been really, really supportive. And I've seen that across the board. So if your listeners or watchers aren't aware of that and have their local small business that they love, be it a shop, a coffee shop, whatever it is, I would reach out and even ask if it's not a facility that they've talked about themselves, to maybe contact them and say, look, I'd like to buy a voucher off you guys for when you open, just to kind of support you right now. I think, as much as we can, it's just about focusing on those small local businesses. I don't know, even the ones now that have like, I think there's a few maybe that have opened that are doing like social distancing and following the rules, but have like a click and collect. A friend of mine that has done that. I mean, myself and herself have had conversations over this, and she wanted to do it in one sense, like for her customers, because they were crying out to her. But in another sense, she wants to make sure that like she's keeping her staff and herself and her customers safe. But to be really honest, like us small businesses, we do have massive overheads. And hers were just, it could have led to her not reopening. So she has done something like that. So if you have your favorite little place, maybe go and support them with their click and collect as well, just to keep things going. It's a very different world. I don't know how it's going to be after all of this, but yeah, we'll see.
But yeah, we will see indeed. And I think as people, and the consumer often forgets how much power that they have, like versus a fast fashion company or a small independent business like that. If everyone made one switch, it would make a huge, huge difference. So thank you so much, Fiona, for this interview. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed talking to you, I have to say. And thank you so much for your support. And everybody, if you're listening to this, like honestly, this was a brand that was a dream of mine. And, it was something that I wanted to create once I got my coffee shop up and running, which, it was 10 months going, and it was really getting noticed. And obviously then the situation we're in now hit. So I've only recently been able to give this brand the time at the moment, in the current situation. And to be really honest, I have been absolutely blown away by the support that the amount of people have given this brand. And the messages that I get, like some of them have made me cry, like like people buying stuff for people on the front line, Stay Hopeful jumpers, or for their daughter's wedding that's been cancelled. Like, you wouldn't believe the messages that I get, and I can't believe that something this small has created such a little positive network online at the moment. So yeah, I just want to say thanks. I'm like super grateful to see it, and it's nice. It's a positive little shiny thing at the moment online.
I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation with Fiona and learned something from it or felt inspired in some way. If you want to keep up to date with her stock, check out her Instagram, All Things Fiona Lily. Everything is linked in the show notes. She did a stock drop there last Monday and everything sold out. It was absolutely amazing. My jumper as well, just for anyone who is interested in what they're made of. Obviously she has no say. She's just like getting things that are about to go to landfill. The jumper that I got is 50% cotton and 50% polyester, polyamide, some kind of plastic anyway. So like with most clothes, if you're getting them in a charity shop, or you're getting them vintage, or you're wearing hand-me-downs, or you're buying t-shirts made of recycled plastic, or you're buying stock that's going to be sent to landfill, those are all sustainable. But if there's plastic in the fibers, we still need to be cautious that every time we wash them, there's basically loads of microplastics just being washed into the sea, because filters in washing machines only hold keys, like stop keys and hair clips and coins going through them. They're not actually doing anything for the tiny little microfibers that are being found in our oceans, in our fish, and in humans at the moment. So there's some steps. We're going to do another episode on this, but just quick few steps to help with microplastics. Every time you put a wash on, wash 40 degrees or less, because the higher the heat, the more fibers break away, and your clothes will actually last longer as well. And there's also things that you can get, like a Guppy Friend bag or a Cora ball, and I'll link those in the show notes as well, and those reduce the amount of fibres that are released into the waters. Guppy bag, you put any clothes with polyester into the bag and then you stick it in the washing machine. It's free postage to Europe as well, and they're €28 I think, and then you just take off the microfibers that collect, and they work really, really well. I have one myself. And then there's a Cora ball that is basically designed and works like a piece of coral in the sea, because they collect tiny little organisms, I guess is the word, in the ocean, and that's where that design comes from, and they stop a fair chunk of microplastics from entering the water. So those are little things to help that we need to use anyway, because even when we're buying sustainable, supporting these brands, or buying secondhand, we can still end up with polyester clothes. So it is just important. Just wanted to highlight that and throw that in there. And another thing as well, this, if you're listening way in the future, this won't apply to you, but at the moment, as it stands, on the 11th of May, Fiona is actually holding a giveaway on her Instagram to raise money for Pieta House, because obviously Darkness into Light is something that Pieta House in Ireland do every year to raise money for their charity and to raise awareness about suicide and mental health, and they can't do that now. So Fiona is actually running a little giveaway where you can win 3 t-shirts and 3 crew necks, 3 big jumpers on her page, and all you need to do is make a donation to Pieta House through her Instagram, and then you'll be entered into a draw. So that is a lovely little thing, and I just wanted to plug that very quickly for her. That is it. If you have any questions or anything, just feel free to get in touch. I'm on Instagram at Book Uglies Podcast. I have a website, bookugliespodcast.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter as well. And of course, Patreon too. So thank you so much for listening. And in 2 weeks' time, we'll have another episode out. So I'm going back to every second Monday. And yeah, don't forget to give us a follow and rate the podcast, review the podcast, subscribe to the podcast, and go follow Fiona as well. And stay safe, mind yourselves, wash your hands, and sending you a lot of love. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.